So today we're going to look at a Parkinson's diagnosis from a totally different angle, not as an ending, but as a new beginning. We're going to dive into a really powerful philosophy from the European Parkinson Therapy Centre that completely reframes the entire journey. And wow, this line from the center's founder, Alexander Reed, just hits you, right? It perfectly captures that raw, shattering shock of hearing those words for the first time. It feels like everything just stops. So that's really the big question, isn't it? What if that's not the end of the story? Is there a path forward from that initial explosion? Well, the answer seems to be yes. And it's a path built on empowerment, on understanding, and on hope. All right, so let's start at the very beginning, where most journeys with Parkinson's begin with that overwhelming, all-consuming shock of the diagnosis itself. And this is something we have to get right away. A diagnosis doesn't just happen to one person in a vacuum. No, it hits the entire family. Suddenly, everyone, spouses, children, friends, is thrown into this world of uncertainty, full of fear and so many questions. And, this chart, it just lays out a pretty staggering reality. We tend to focus on the physical things, the motor symptoms, but the research is clear. For more than half the people living with Parkinson's, it's actually apathy and depression that do the most damage to their quality of life. And this is where you see the huge disconnect. On one hand, the standard medical process is often just, here's some pills, see you in a year. But on the other hand, what people and their families are crying out for is support, real answers, and a little bit of hope. There's this massive gap between what's given and what's needed. And it was seeing that exact gap that led to a completely revolutionary approach, all because one man just refused to accept the way things were. That's Alexander Reed again. After he was diagnosed, he just got so frustrated with the system that he felt treated him like a victim. He basically said, no way, we are not victims. We are people who can fight back. I mean, his journey is just incredible. He gets this diagnosis at 43, and instead of letting it defeat him, he takes all his expertise from the business world and channels it into creating this amazing nonprofit center. For him, this isn't some academic theory. It's a direct response to a system he knew had to change. So from this really personal mission, he developed this incredibly powerful, all-encompassing framework. It's designed to help people literally rebuild their lives from the ground up after a diagnosis. It's called the Regen Protocol, and that name, regeneration, is so perfect, right? It's not just about therapy. It's about a whole new way of thinking, of facing Parkinson's with the goal of getting back a sense of control and, you guessed it, hope. The idea behind it is so simple but so powerful. Think about it. You can't build a house with only one wall. It just won't stand. Well, medicine is an absolutely essential wall, but it can't do the job alone. It needs support. And here they are, the 4 pillars that create that strong, stable house. You've got medicine, that's the foundation. But holding it up, just as important, are physical activity, lifestyle, and, this is the big one, psychology. Okay, so here's where the magic happens. It's how these 4 things work together. Medicine is the starting block. It gets you in the game. Then, daily physical activity taps into neuroplasticity. The brain's incredible ability to rewire itself. Lifestyle is all about making smart adaptations, choosing quality over quantity. And psychology, that's about you deciding to be the hero of your own story, not the victim. Okay, so let's really zoom in on that 4th pillar, psychology. Because according to this way of thinking, it might just be the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. And get this isn't just a feel-good idea. It's backed by major research. Your mood, your emotional state, has a direct, real-world impact on your health. It's often not the condition itself that destroys quality of life, but our emotional response to it. And that brings us to this incredibly powerful thought. You might not have a choice about getting the diagnosis, but you absolutely 100% have a choice in how you respond to it. That's where your power lies. So how do you actually do that? Well, they have this practical method called ACMA. First, you accept the reality of the situation. Then, you comprehend what you can actually influence. From there, you motivate yourself by linking the hard stuff to things you love. And only then, once you've done all that, can you take real, sustainable action. And I love this analogy they use for why acceptance is step 1. Trying to fight something you won't even acknowledge is like stepping into a boxing ring blindfolded. You're just swinging at air. Acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about taking the blindfold off so you can finally see your opponent and start landing some real punches.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the four pillars, the power of your own choice, it completely changes the game. It reframes what living with Parkinson's can actually mean.
This right here, this is the key shift in thinking. It's not about destruction, it's about adaptation. We all adapt as we get older, right? This is just a different set of limits that calls for a new, more creative way of living.
And honestly, if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The goal isn't to desperately try to reclaim the past. It's to build a new future. A life that, yeah, is going to be different, but can still be just as rich, just as valuable, and just as full of joy. And that brings us right back to where we started, but with a whole new perspective. This single sentence says it all. The diagnosis is not the final chapter. It's the start of a new one, and you get to write it. So we end with this question to chew on. This whole approach suggests that, yeah, maybe even in a challenge as tough as Parkinson's, there's an opportunity. An opportunity to build a life that's more conscious, more focused, and maybe even more meaningful. A true new beginning.